Indeed, indeed. Peace, love, and bountiful light. Another day above ground. I hope all is well. And today I wanted to do a little bit of dive going on into a painting in which I'm working on right now, dealing with Adam and Eve in the garden. And it's a painting from a scene of chapter 3, verse 22. And let's just go right on into it. Ultimately, what we're going to end up using to go break this thing down is we're going to be going through the Sefer, my notebook, the Zondervan Dictionary. We'll be pulling out some of these preachers outline sermons. Let's just go right on in. Chapter 3, verse 22, it deals with Adam and Eve in the garden with the serpent. And it says, Yahuwah Elohim said, Behold, the man is become as one of us, to know good and evil. And now, lest he put forth his hand and take also of the tree of life, and eat, and live forever. Therefore, verse 23, therefore Yahuwah Elohim sent him forth from the garden of Eden, to till the ground from whence he was taken. Well, to really get on into it, did the serpent lie? Did the serpent lie? Well, to determine whether the serpent lied or not, we have to establish a few things first. The first things we have to establish is what was said in the garden by Yah. 2, what was said by the serpent to Adam and Eve. 3, we have to establish 4 parts really. We have to establish where they are, where this conversation is taking place. 2, what is death? The meaning to die. 3, how long is a day? He said, for in that day ye shall surely die. And 4, how old is the oldest person? So let's just go right on into the top. What was said in the garden? And when you go to Genesis 2, verse 8, it says, And Yahuwah Elohim planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. Pause. It says, Yahuwah Elohim planted a garden eastward in Eden. So Yahuwah Elohim, the creator, planted this garden. And he planted this garden in Eden. So in a land that was already perfect, he created an even more perfect space called the garden in this perfect place. And we know this place in this land was already perfect because when we go back into when we go back to chapter 1, verse 31, it says, And Elohim saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the 6th day. So we see at the end of the 6th day, after the creating of the heavens and the earths and the seas and the oceans, the sun and the moon, the beasts of the earth, the insects and all of this good old stuff, he saw and looked back on all of his creation. He saw that everything was very good. Saw that it was very good. And seeing that it was very good, this stuff was perfect. It was beautiful. So even within that beauty, he created another divinely place, which was to be our home, the garden. That in itself was a powerful thing. We were going to be living, we're natural beings. We're going to be living in a natural environment, a garden, on a natural earth. That in itself needs breaking down, but we're going to come back to that another time. I wanted to go back to verse 2 and 7, where it goes into the creation of man. It says, And Yahuwah Elohim formed the man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. It's going to say that man became a living soul. We remember that soul, Nefesh, means an animated being, an animated, breathing, conscious, and living being. It does not mean the spirit of man. It does not mean the spirit of man. Yahuwah had just breathed his spirit and life into man. Once Yah did this, man became a living soul, an animated, breathing, conscious, and living creature. He was a living soul just like all the other creatures of the earth. However, there was one distinctive difference between the animals and man. Man was given the very breath of Yah himself, the very spirit of life, the very spirit and life of Yah. Note, man did not become a living soul until Yah breathed his spirit and life into man. This is significant, very significant. It means that man is the only living spirit upon earth. Man is both a spiritual and soulish or animated being. It means that animals are only living souls or non-spiritual beings. It means that vegetation is only an an inanimate being. Another way to say the same thing is this: vegetation or plant life lives, but it is inanimate. Animals live, but they are only animate or soulless creatures. They are not spiritual creatures. They do not have the breath or spirit of Yah within them. They do not worship Yah. Man lives, but he is both an animate and a spiritual creature. Man is both soul and spirit. Man is an animal, a soul creature, a soulish creature, but he is also a spiritual creature, a creature who worships Yah. Man is made both of earth and heaven. This is the distinctiveness of man. Man is the summit of Yahuwah's creation, the creature who possesses both soul and spirit. He is the creature who has been given the very breath of Yah, the very spirit and life of Yah himself. Man is the creature who has been created both of heaven and earth. Man is the creature who can choose to live either for the earth or for Yah. So now we have a divine being. We have, well, two divine beings, Adam and Eve. You have the serpent. You have the garden. And we have Eden. We have the garden within Eden. We have Eden. So now, and we also have Yahuwah. Now, what did Yahuwah say? To go to find out exactly what Yahuwah said, we have to go to chapter 2, verse 16. And it says, "And Yahuwah Elohim commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden you may freely eat, but out of the tree of knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat of it. For in that day that you eat thereof, ye shall surely die." Now this is the key. We have to say, okay, so the Lord said, he commanded man. So this is the first commandment. Don't disobey. Listen to what I say and follow, take heed, right? You can do this, you can live freely, you can live freely, you can live freely, but take heed to what I say, right? Thus, therefore, sin is transgression of the law. Teaches you what the culture of Yahuwah is. The law teaches us what the culture of Yahuwah is, what our Lord is. It teaches us what the culture of God is. It teaches us what to do, what not to do, what is good, what is not good, what is good to eat, what's not good to eat, what's good to say, what's not good to say, what's good to think, what's not good to think, what's good to do, what's not good to do. It gives us clarity so we know how to handle and how to deal in this world in which we live, because now in this world in which we live, we have knowledge of good and evil. Therefore, the law had to come into place so we would know what is right and what is not right, what is God's way, what is not God's way. Because before, all we knew was God's way. Before we eating the fruit, we had knowledge of good and godly, good and divine. The Lord put his very breath, as we had just established, through his life and his breath into us. We became living souls and spirits. So we became spiritual beings and soulish beings. So as we're soulish and we're spiritual, we're living in this garden, we're in tune with the Father, we're walking in the garden. We know the Creator says we knew he was walking in the cool of the day. So we were one with our Creator. We had a relationship with our Creator. We had free choice within this environment in which we were living, which was all good. And as the Lord established previously, saw that it was very good. The land was very good. The place was very good. The garden that he placed us in was a paradise. So it was even beyond even very good, whatever that is. So we had knowledge of good and knowledge of very good. We had knowledge of good and godly, divine. We had divine knowledge. The thing we did not know, what we did not know was evil. What we did not know was death. What we did not know was decay. What we did not know was devilishment. What we did not know was deception. What we did not know was all the things that the serpent embodied. So thus we did not recognize the serpent in his deception. But what did the serpent say? Where did his deception come in? The serpent's deception started chapter 3, verse 1, where it says, "Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which Yahuwah Elohim had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, has Elohim said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden?" Acting like he didn't know. He said, "Did God say that you shouldn't eat of every tree of the garden?" And then she said, and the woman said unto the serpent, "We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden. We can eat the fruit of the trees. We're allowed to eat the fruit of the trees. But the fruit of the tree, which is in the midst of the garden, Elohim has said, ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. So he said, you can eat of anything. She just repeated what the Creator said, what Yahuwah had said. He said, no, he said that we can eat, but just the tree in the midst of the garden, we can't eat. For in that day, and we can't even touch it, for if we do, we'll die. And the serpent came back, and the serpent said unto the woman, ye shall not surely die. For Elohim knows that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as Elohim, knowing good and evil. He just denied Yahuwah, and the serpent, in verse 4, he said, and the serpent said unto the woman, ye shall not surely die. So he just denied the truth of what Yah just said. For Elohim knows that in that day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as Elohim, knowing good and evil. And then he tried to put them in opposition to the Most High, put them in, making them feel like they're in a place of not knowing, in a lesser state, or in a place of absence, in a place of limitation. But they were already limitless. Their life was limitless. The goodness in their lives was limitless. The possibilities and potentialities, everything that can grow, was only going to grow and go from there. And Yahuwah was going to give us exactly what we needed as we needed it, far beyond our understanding. So when we go down to verse 6, you see that it says, and when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and the tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her man with her, and he did eat. And the eyes of them both were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. And they heard the voice of Yahuwah Elohim walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And the man and his woman hid themselves from the presence of Yahuwah Elohim amongst the trees of the garden. So now we see that Adam and Eve ate of the fruit that they were not supposed to eat. Their eyes were opened in the midst of the garden. They became aware of knowledge of good and evil, where they before already were knowledgeable of good and divine. Now they became knowledgeable of evil. So imagine that, how confusing that would be. Kind of like the first time you see something that's confusing to yourself. You thought life was one way, but then all of a sudden you see something happen. Or the first time you found out and learned about death, if you were not too young, but young enough to not understand it, but old enough to know that something is not coming back. Then the confusion that sets in. And then it's like, how does a parent explain that to their child, right? Like the confusion that sets in even when you've just been violated, but you don't understand like what just happened. Confusion. Oh man, confusion. There's so many ways and areas of confusion. Their eyes were open to knowledge of good and evil, and they hid themselves. They hid themselves. They hid themselves, so they knew they were in the wrong. They knew they made a poor choice. They knew they chose their will over the Most High's will. They knew they violated, and they became knowledge of good and evil. So they knew that they, kind of like when you know you did wrong, but you don't know what the punishment would be, or you know you did wrong, you're looking around to see if anybody else saw you. You know what I mean? You don't necessarily know the weight of the judgment, or you don't necessarily know the weight of the punishment, or you don't know the weight of the effect of what you just did, or you know what I mean? But so they had these feelings, all these emotions of these unknowns going on, these unknown emotions happening. Imagine that. First time you have a bunch of unknown, now these cause anxieties. And then even like those panic attacks. So they're probably suffering from anxiety, high anxiety. Imagine the Lord on you, man. They say it's a terrible and dreadful thing falling into the hands of the Lord. So if you had the Lord on you, man, imagine their level of anxiety. Their heart probably wanted to explode. Imagine the level of their paranoia and panic. Of course, they would go hide behind some trees or something like that, hoping that something would protect them. So now we're looking at this deep violation, right? But did the serpent lie? So he said, surely you won't die. He said, surely you won't die, for you will be like the Most High. Now, though we had knowledge of good and godly, and now there's knowledge of evil, which the Most High knows. Good, evil, knows all things. Because I create good, I create evil. So now, the Most High knowing these things, the Most High knows how to deal with these things. Though us having knowledge of it, we don't have knowledge on how to deal with it, though. So though it made us knowledgeable of knowing good and evil, we don't have understanding of good and evil. We don't know how to keep all this stuff in check, let alone how to rise above it, let alone how to overcome it or how to even conquer it. There's so many things the Lord say, bring back. There's so many points when man thinks he knows as good as God, thinks he knows as much as Yah, thinks he's as smart as Yah. When Yah says, just ask him simple questions. Like, if you know so much, how much is the weight of a fire? Or won't you bring back yesterday, since the day that you already went through yesterday, won't you bring that day back? Something that you already been through. He asked, man, so many, and just the thought of the question could just bust your vessel like, man. So we can see that he lied, that the serpent lied there as far as we will be like the Most High, because we're not like the Most High. We have a knowledge, but we don't have an understanding like that. Not one person can eradicate all ills of the world forever. Not one person can conquer death other than Yahushua HaMashiach, who already has done that. Can anybody go the rest of their life without getting cold or catching cold? And sure, one could say, yeah, I'll create these buildings, I'll create these man-made structures, these man-made devices to counter these natural things. But even they have their end. All created things have an exit date, an expiration date, a timeliness about them. So even then they will be gone. And even the thought thereof, or the invention of the mind that created it, or the blueprints that laid it on out, eventually all things go, rolled up like a scroll. So we see that the serpent lied there. But let's go further into the lie. He says, for in that day ye shall surely die. This is what the Lord said. But the serpent said, no, you won't die in that day. But what does the Lord say a day is, man? We have to establish what a day is. What is a day? According to Scripture. Now, a day, according when you're looking at 2 Peter 3:8, but beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with Yahuwah as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day. So we just established now that one day to the Most High Yah is 1,000 years in our lives. So 1,000 of our years is one day. One day to Yah. Where else does this back this up at? Let's go into Psalms 84:10. For a day in your courts is better than 1,000. I'd rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my Elohim than to dwell in the tents of wickedness. The tents of wickedness is the human body, the human flesh. We are always tempted. We are always feeling we always have this duality happening within us. Our aspirations for good, as well as our temptations for evil, for our flesh. Where does that say that again? The book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 18 at verse 10. The number of man's days at the most are 100 years. Say that again. Ecclesiasticus 18, starting at verse 9. The number of man's days at the most are 100 years. As a drop of water unto the sea, and a gravel stone in comparison of the sand, so are 1,000 years to the days of eternity. One more. Jubilees 4:30. I think you all get the point here. And he lacked 70 years of 1,000 years. For 1,000 years are as one day in the testimony of the heavens, and therefore was it written concerning the tree of knowledge. And that's direct. On the day that ye eat thereof, ye shall die. For this reason he did not complete the years of this day, for he died during it. Rewind that back again. This is talking about Cain. It says, starting at verse 29, and at the close of the 19th Jubilee, In the 7th week, in the 6th year thereof, Adam died, and all his sons buried him in the land of his creation. And he was the first to be buried in the earth. And he lacked 70 years of 1,000 years. For 1,000 years are as one day in the testimony of the heavens and thereof. And therefore was it written concerning the tree of knowledge, on the day that ye eat thereof, ye shall die. For this reason he did not complete the years of this day, for he died during it. Now that explains it right there. The very question that we just asked. How long is the day? And did the serpent lie? Yes, he lied. The day is 1,000 years. Adam did not make it out of that day. He did not make it out of that 1,000 years. But did anybody make it out of 1,000 years? Because this is the next question. Did anybody live longer than a day? Go straight to Genesis 5:27, and it'll take us to the oldest man that has lived. And all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died. Methuselah, who was the son of Enoch, the father of Lamech, and the grandfather of Noah, is the oldest person to live. And the oldest person to live lived 969 years, not 1,000. There is not one person that lived 1,000 years. So what does that say? That says that the serpent lied. And not only did he lied severely. Yes, he lied.